one that we're going to get through.
We do that all
So
the time.
happy to see y'all, as
So
always.
We're
We gonna
thrilled to
get
see you
through.
as well. We're thrilled to see you as well. But go ahead, finish your thought. You were saying you like
That was it. That I just, I do
people
that
ask that
too. You
question.
don't want to feel like you giving off a bad vibe because you may not be having a great day. So I always say, I'm okay.
Have you guys ever seen those little skits or those cartoons where one of the things they do is the cartoon would say, when I ask you how you're doing today, it's like, I actually really didn't want your real answer. It's like if
Right.
the person actually goes into like, you know what? I got into an argument with my spouse this morning. The
You just
kids
fade out. They fade out. And they fade
and so
out.
the thought is like, man, I really don't want to deal with this. So I would say for me that was an epiphany at a young age. One of the other things that stood out to me was, and I say I'm not going to go into all of them, so I'm not going to. I'll let you kind of bring it in when you want to bring it in. I remember being young as this kid that used to wear hand-me-downs, being ridiculed for being a loner. I remember the first time in my life that I was called conceited. And I wasn't called conceited because I thought I was better than people, but I just stopped caring what other people thought. So I went from being this kid who I remember being joked for wearing this oatmeal coat, as they called it, but it was a hand-me-down, and I didn't realize the oatmeal coat was a beige coat with beady balls. Yeah, it was beady balls on it.
Yes,
So it was called.
texture.
But I was called that, but I remember because I had kind of grown to this place of, I'm not going to let what you say kind of dictate my life. At this young age, I remember having a young lady call me conceited. And like I say, not because I thought I was better than her or had more than her. She just felt like because her words had no more sway or authority in my life that I was now conceited. The third thing was having my heart broken for the first time. This was before my baby, but I remember having my heart broken. And it was funny, the quick story was I remember thinking, man, I want to commit suicide. I'm going to jump off. I remember actually
Lord,
saying,
I have been there.
and I remember
Lord,
saying to
have
the
been
young
there.
lady, I was like, I'm going to kill myself. And she gets all scared. And then as I'm sitting there watching her get
I
scared,
ain't killing myself. though.
exactly. The thought ran through my mind. I was like, this type of stuff happened on happy days all the time.
Yeah. But you know what? To piggyback off of that, because I think when people hear PTSD, your assumption is that some major trauma happened. It was a death or you were at war. And really what that is, the PTSD is when it sends your adrenaline rushing. It heightens your blood pressure over a memory that you had or an experience that you had that was negative to you. So no one can dictate what your trauma is. Your trauma is your own. I remember the first time I was called a bitch by a guy because I didn't want to talk to him. Because in the 90s, that was a thing, as you were coming up. Because I didn't know how to communicate with you as a
It's
female.
not a thing now?
But not for me. You can call me whatever you want.
But it's not going to hit the way that it
last
hit.
time a guy
I got
called
you,
me
I
a
got
bitch,
you.
I barked at his ass in the mall.
Right.
It stopped that because now that's my thing,
Yeah.
Because there's no power in the word
But I
now.
remember having
She said I barked at him.
I
That's
did. I
funny.
barked at him. But I remember hearing that and thinking to myself, well, why would you say that?
Right.
But flip side, because we're here, the gap that we are filling with each other is the fact that we grew up without our dad.
Right.
So when there's no man in your life to tell you you're not a bitch, you are a good person. Who you are matters to someone. It matters to me because a lot of the times the men in your life, as long as you matter to them, everybody else is shit. It doesn't matter because you can't compare it to my dad, my
Right.
uncle,
Right.
my brother, those things like that. So when you don't have someone to like bridge that gap and you're trying to figure out if you're acting like one, what is one,
Right.
how do you not be one? And you
Right.
had to realize as
Yeah.
you were getting older that you define who you are.
Exactly.
And you accept what everybody gives you. You can repel those words. You can repel that stigma that people want to attach to you once you learn who you are. But when you're so young and you don't have anybody guiding you, because your mom can guide you, but if she's being called one too,
Right.
you both are dealing with the same thing, so.
And sis, you said something talking about it doesn't have to be death. Some common symptoms of non-combat PTSD that a lot of people don't realize that exist, and you can know if you're actually struggling or going through this, is some common combat symptoms are easily irritable or angry, your reckless or self-destructive behavior, and that can be from drug use, unprotected sex, reckless driving. It could be all kinds of destructive things. Easily startled, problems with concentration, difficulties sleeping, including falling asleep and or staying asleep. And this one article I was reading, it was sad. This article that I was reading by a lady named Tanya McKenzie, she spoke about how she struggled with sleeping because she was molested when she was 13 years old and I think 15 years old. And she said she went to sleep and then she woke up with someone on top of her. And so when she was older and she didn't want to go to sleep, the reason she didn't want to go to sleep or had trouble going to sleep because the dreams would come, and so she would fight sleep. And fight going to sleep because she said she would have to be exhausted in order to actually go to sleep because of having this trauma of being asleep, waking up with someone on you.
And I will tell you, as a person who was molested by a family friend, that shit will mess you up because I don't sleep at anybody's house but my own. Period. Not even at my mom's house, and not that it happened at my mom's house. But I am not a person who I need to be in my comfort zone with my doors locked, with my family, or I'm not going out. And it still bothers me now because I know that there are times in your life when things happen to you and you can't control how the situation plays out.
That's right.
What I will say is that my mom is a super awesome ass woman, and she's not one to question what happened. You tell her it happened, she automatically jumps into that shit. I never had to go back to the house. I never had to deal with it.
Right.
And what's jacked up about it is that it was our father's best friend's house. It was his child. So when you think about life and how it goes in full circle, you realize that your trauma, it stays with you no matter what. So if we can reach people as early as possible to try to help them identify what their traumas are, B, to define what their hard limits are when it comes to friendships, family, workspace, co-workers, it makes such a big difference because once you say, no, this is my bubble, as Light says, this is my bubble, you can't touch it. Not your words, not your spirit, not your attitude. We don't want it because if you're coming at me with your negativity, I don't want that in my heart. So I repel that. Because
each one of us, and we're jumping ahead a little bit, but each one of us already have battle scars and wounds, and it's so funny. I think that when you're dealing with it, one of the things I've seen is I like that while black folk, we may not go to see a lot of mental therapists, but I do believe we express our pain and frustration in a variety of maybe sometimes destructive forms. And so once you get to that place where you're protecting yourself, because I think many of us build up that bubble or that exterior to where as though we are just trying to protect ourselves. We've grown up, we've survived, and when I say we've made it, I'm not talking about financially, but meaning we've made it through whatever the trauma is. And so when we start to allow other people into our world, a part of the difficulty is we don't want those people to hurt them. And I know that's been me, sis, for a long time, to where as though and it's not even a trust factor because I just take people at their word. My babe always tell me I'm too trusting sometimes because I'll just take people at their word, but I don't want to live with the negativity of not trusting. But when it comes to actually me sharing my world with you, I'm very protective of my world. Like my world revolves a lot around who my family is, what we do together, and they matter to me more than anything. Everything I would always tell people, I said the most important thing to me is how my family is doing, like mentally, and how they're in their well-being. Absolutely. And when I say their well-being, it's not just their finances, it's not just education, it's just how they're developing and how they're growing up. I'm really, really into making sure they're good. And so when it comes to bringing people in and around my family, I'm very, very careful. And so the people that I do allow into my home or do allow to our functions and things like that, I know that's when I'm not only letting down a guard, I'm letting you into something that I consider sacred. I consider them very sacred. And so I've worked through some processes to get to that place, but because I agree. That's what I was gonna say. I think that because what I've learned, and it's unfortunate, I've learned over the course of time, and we'll recap some of these things because we're jumping around a little bit, but over the course of time, whether I'm in church, whether I'm at work, even if it's different individuals you've grown up with, I've seen people who come to your family, and because of what they're dealing with, they bring their drama to you and your
Right.
family, and they have a heavy impact on like how you live. And when they do so, you watch it just kind of unravel and explode in your world.
Rule in my house is your spirit can't cross my front door
Yep.
unless we feel it's going to be positive and a positive impact on us. My kids are that way. My kids don't allow friends to their house if they don't feel that they're positive or bringing something good to the house. And it wasn't even something that you consciously put into your kids, but when your kids say, I want to have some friends over, and you say, who? 3? Oh, well, you can have a party. No, 3. Because these 3 people mean something to me. They can come into my house, and I know that what happens here is in our house. Because I think what we are fighting is having people who come in for malicious reasons,
Right.
who just need a reason to talk about you on the other side. They're not bringing
Exactly.
anything positive to your life.
There to take.
And sometimes, not sometimes, most of the times, it's because they're wounded.
Yes.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yep.
That's just the way it works.
Exactly.
And you can't change that, you know.
Exactly. So what we want to do right now, Super DJ Sean Rebel.
What up?
We want to take a little 30-second break.
30 seconds.
A minute and a 15 seconds.
Just want to take a little break
Exactly.
real quick with whether it's you or Protege.
We'll be right back after these brief messages with All Up in Your Business. Organic radio show. Super DJ Sean Rebel. Protege on the beat, y'all. Song's called Jump Off. And you heard it first on Organic Radio. This one right here is called Protege Be More Club Banger. Yeah, we highlighting and spotlighting the producers now. So all y'all producers out there listening in, make sure y'all send me y'all beats to DJ Sean, that's SHAWN, Rebel, that's REBEL, at gmail.com. So we can play your stuff and, you know, promote y'all on the radio show. You know what I'm saying? Holla at your boy, DJ Sean Rebel, at gmail.com. Super DJ Sean Rebel, as my man Light says, Double X, as Lovely says, but 1-855-493-6499 is the call-in number. Listen to me, y'all. When it's time for y'all to call in, let the guests get up and do their thing. That's what the song say. But when they call in, you know what I'm saying, call in after the subject. They say, you know, we got any callers out there, start calling in. Again, that number is 1-855-493-6499. 855-493-6499. Again, Protege on the beat. All right. I can't even use that. I can't use it.
You can't use it.
Is the copyright on saying all right?
All up in your business, we're back live.
Hello.
So
you telling me I can't say all right? Can I say all right?
You can
Can't
say
say
it
it in that sequence.
That
Can
sequence.
I can't say all right.
I guess.
I can say that.
Aight.
You can
I
say like,
guess.
all right, exclamation mark. All
Look.
right, exclamation mark.
The way things are going these days is like
I know, bruh.
we trying to get on and we trying to put other artists on and put music out there, but the FCC, the
They about their
copyright
business.
infringement,
They about their business.
Gotta
They
coin
just
your
hitting
own
so
everything.
hard with everything because it's like I know you want to use like I'm talking to everybody out there in TV and audio land. When you are using music, right? If you don't have the permission, and it's very hard to get permissions when the people on tour.
Yeah.
Or the publicist doesn't pick up the phone. You have to wait weeks and weeks at a time to say, hey, can I use that song? I want to use a song for my show. Like, yes or no, right? But by the time you get to that answer, you already did the show.
Very true.
The show,
Very
you
true.
know, you got a schedule too. You got to stay up. So all up in your business. We're back.
There it is.
Okay.
Back in it again, huh? So you're telling us we have to be uniquely creative on our own.
Oh, man.
I'm from Baltimore, bro. We can do that.
You have
I'm
to
organic
your own
radio.
words, your own language.
Right.
I already have my own language.
I know.
Well, we got super
That's
producers
regular.
up. We got mad producers, so I ain't worried about the FCC or anybody's
There we go.
laws. We got
Let's
plenty
do
of
Baltimore
artists.
then. Let's do Baltimore.
Let's do everywhere.
Yeah,
everywhere.
let's do everywhere.
Baltimore and beyond.
True
That's
that.
what we're trying to touch.
You see my face.
Baltimore and
True.
beyond.
True. But I got
Is that
it.
Can't say that either.
I don't know. I was gonna say like,
That's copywritten too. That's trademark.
man, all the words are copyrighted.
They're about to be.
Whew.
Hot
You have
girl
no
summer,
dictionary.
everybody
Go to
got
school
it.
with a half
all.
a book.
I tried to type in like when I was trying to type in regular like and do a hashtag.
It's already
and
out there.
and somebody I was like, are you kidding me?
It's not
And
too
so I
many
had
that's
to
not
put
out there.
And so I'm thinking that's my word. I was looking at some financial report this morning and it was like it was something in some finance and regular and I was like I said, I've been using it. Should have gotten. You wasn't thinking about copywriting it way back when I was 14 years old.
Right.
And I lived my whole life saying it. So somebody get to a point where it's like, no, you can't say that.
You can say it.
I'm going to say it.
I just can't play it.
So
You can say it.
Had
I
to be
can't.
like
I-
regular light or
yeah,
something like that.
exactly.
Put your own on there.
Yeah. I got to do that.
And back to all up in your
All right, so
business.
let's get back in. We digress,
digress.
as people say.
As you say,
I hate when people say
because
that.
I like to go off on a tangent.
Yes.
Yeah, I know
And
I
I
do.
do.
That's why I'm.
Hey,
I
what's
rap-
the
I
safe
rap-
word for the day? What's the safe word for the day when you start?
Oh, it's always supersonic.
Supersonic.
Supersonic is the
Oh,
safe
okay,
word
that's right,
all the
that's right.
time. When somebody's going too long,
That was
it's,
my
we go
song.
supersonic.
You always take me
Supersonic.
back with that word.
I know.
So it's
Coming
like-
back, I wanted to say thank you for sharing, because you don't have to, and I believe there's plenty of people listening that can relate to a lot of the trauma that we talk about here. So I just wanted to tell y'all thank you again, because this topic is so important to a lot of people. They may not come out and say or be able to share, but they're listening.
You know what's funny? I consider myself, and it was, we had a photo session this week, and I told my sister, I said I wanted to, we went in and we had our dress, suit and tie, and then of course I had a spot where I put a Wu-Tang shirt on and put some other things on. But if we did a full
All the time, repping every day.
if we did a full session, Rebel, and I know this was one of the old songs, but in one of our old songs, I said they call me shining light because my light so shines. So when men see my actions, God will be glorified. I go from fire suits to baggies, the army's fatigues. There's no standard uniform in this Christ-run league, and so there's
I
more.
wanted to do the WAP just now.
I know. I was like,
I was like,
but the reason that last part of the line is significant to me because when you think about mental health, we look at mental health like you have to appear a certain way or you
Right.
have to have a certain look. And my thought is when I get up here and have the opportunity to share with other individuals, this has been therapeutic for me for a long time. This process of starting as a young man, and I'm thankful to God because He's given me not only enlightenment and understanding, but He's given me the ability of memory recall for those significant moments in life that have actually impacted me, and I consider for the good. Now, have I always responded good to those moments? By no means. I said my, TC sitting over there, Trisha sitting over there, she got 29 years of, if this nigga don't stop getting on my nerves.
It just happened. I just felt it. She said, check.
And so I would always say, while it's not easy, I tell people, I say it's not easy enduring the emotions and everything else that go. But the one thing that I've learned to do is, and I've always said to her, is one I've always wanted to communicate. I've always wanted to talk, and I don't believe in just shutting things down, because when I shut things down, something negative always happens. Something like the response, the outburst, and it's never a positive when I'm not able to communicate. So when we're sitting up here talking, I want to encourage other individuals to realize that as they analyze and walk through their lives, don't be afraid to challenge yourself and to challenge the different. And when I say challenge yourself, it's not like this competition, but challenge yourself in a way where you're willing to look at those ghosts and those, I don't want to call them skeletons, but those scars and those wounds that exist, so that you can also start the process, because the most important person in helping you to be better and to be mentally well is you.
Absolutely.
It starts with you.
Yeah, and I think that the assumption that you are so special, that this one thing only happened to you,
Right.
it is something that we deal with on a continuous basis. I know, in our previous conversations, we have had conversations about post-traumatic stress syndrome. We've had conversations about, being a mom and the stresses that come with that.
Yeah.
We've had conversations about becoming a dad, just things like that. And as long as the world continues to spin, you will never be by yourself. It is truly up to you to decide who you trust enough within your circle to have the first conversation. Because believe me, the minute you have that conversation and somebody touches you in a way that feels comforting, when you feel like you're being heard, and when you feel like you are protected in that space, you start to release so much baggage. Like, there are days when you talk to people, and by the time you get to the end of the conversation, you feel like 10 pounds lighter,
because worked it out.
It just meant so much to be able to say, and you didn't even know you had so much to say. I had a lady reach out to us on Facebook when I posted that we were talking about post-traumatic stress syndrome, and she said she was getting her car detailed at a shop on Park Heights, and she was speaking with a young lady, and the young lady just dumped her heart out. And she said, my God, did that girl survive? She said she needs to hear your story. She needs to hear this, because there are a lot of people who assume that you just have to deal with it. You have to deal with drugs. You have to deal with, drug addict parents. You have to deal with an environment that is not conducive to learning, to growing, to helping you with your finances, to helping you raise your children. I know how people say all the time, back in the day, we used to help raise each other's kids.
Right.
I can tell you that in my neighborhood, I wouldn't let anybody touch my kids, but my house is so far from my neighbor's house that I'm not in the community. And I probably did that on purpose.
That was our nice way of saying we used to let other people beat our kids, is what it was.
Well, nobody could beat me. My mom used to always say, you see those two lights over there? Those two lights, don't nobody touch them, because we were way lighter than everybody else in our family. Which brings me back to our hello everyone. We did our first podcast with just the two of us.
There we go.
You can find us on Spotify and at All Up in Your Biz podcast.
We had a good time doing that. We were talking a little bit about our lives.
Yes.
The color of our hair, the color of our skin, and some other things.
I dyed my hair, and the hair of him as a child. Who knew? I brought him back to life. I'm growing the hair that he wished he could.
Oh my goodness.
She just came for me?
Came and went.
I'm up here trying to get facts ready. She coming for me.
Hey, supersonic.
Yeah, she coming for me. Yeah. He say supersonic. Too much there. Too much. Oh, man. So, okay. All right. So, we did digress. We did that again. I'm going to not use that word anymore.
No, you have to. This is an open forum for us to.
Oh, no. I was joking with the digress.
No, he said all the time.
No, you're good. You're
You try
good,
to
sis.
stop
You're
me
good.
from my flow.
You're good. So let's get back into
Let's go.
PTSD.
Yes.
And talking about some facts, and then what I want to do in this process, because as I was preparing myself and doing this, because we sit here and Kaylante, you're here, Lovely, you're here. What I want us to do is as I'm kind of looking at my list, and it is so funny. I only got to a certain point of my life when I was looking at what like some of the causes of PTSD are, and you know, I stopped right at where it talks about difficulty sleeping and referenced the lady Tanya McKenzie in one of the articles I was reading. Some other common symptoms of non-combat PTSD are a complete lapse in memory or feeling of blacking out for parts of the trauma, perpetual negative expectations of the world, continuous misattributed blame of self or others about the traumatic event, so persistent negative emotional state and or the inability to experience positive emotions. And I kind of want to stop on that one for a little bit. And the reason I want to stop on that is because as we're dealing with this subject of PTSD, we want to kind of encourage individuals that we believe, and I believe that there is help. This week, and doing this podcast, one of the things Lovely and I have the opportunity to do is we try to do as much research. We dig deep. We read a lot of articles. We listen to a lot of podcasts. And so this week I was listening to a podcast on this podcast called The Nod. And I was listening to this podcast, it was this very well educated gentleman who was talking about what's free and talking about what it takes to be free and how you can get to a place of real once you realize that even with all the education that you have in the world, even with having a good paying job and different things that's going on in your life, you still have people in your world who actually don't accept you for who you are. And he was talking about trying to get to a place of realizing that you don't have to wait for approval to be okay. What you do is you need enlightenment, you need understanding. And so that even though there are different and negative things going on in your world, what we want to encourage people to do is that there are many organizations out there. And the only reason we're not putting a name on some of those organizations, we're saying you can reach out. If you want to reach out to us, please do. But there are many organizations out there who are willing to and trying to help people in and throughout not only the city of Baltimore, but around this country on this particular topic. Black mental health is a subject that, I've heard frequently and often on podcasts lately. If you listen to Jamil Hill, she talks about it. She had Music Soul Child, she had Marseille Martin, and she had other stars. And it was funny, the one episode on Jamil Hill when she was talking to Marseille Martin, this 14-year-old little girl was talking about going through depression. And for those who don't know, she's the Diane on Blackish. She's the youngest child on Blackish. But as she was talking about being 14 and feeling pressure, feeling anxiety, not sleeping well, and just going through trauma and not thinking about suicide, but wanting to die just because of this internal pressure she was applying to herself. And, she talked to her parents, and then in talking with her parents, they worked themselves through this situation. And I referenced that because there are so many different platforms that are out there where listening to and discussing mental health is the topic. We're not by far the only one doing it. Absolutely. But what we want to do is we want to make this a platform and a forum not for just stars. We want normal, regular people, because that's what all of us are, even if we're stars.
Absolutely.
But, look like us.
Yeah, exactly. But people who are experiencing life, regardless of where you are, to understand that, no, let's talk about this. And we hope to encourage you to have the conversation, whether it's with your parents, with someone in your church, with a healthcare professional, if you have a counselor, whatever the case may be, find that person. And then if all of that fails, if you want to reach out to us on one of our social media platforms, by all means, please reach out to us, because we don't want this just to be lip service. Our goal is to continue to grow and get involved in other organizations and do other things so that the community recognizes that all up in your business, we want to be up in your business to help you get better in life.
Absolutely. And I think this week what I focused on the most with the post-traumatic stress syndrome were the repercussions, or what damage you do to yourself after. So a traumatic situation happens, and I happened to listen to a podcast that was PTSD, sex addiction, and drug addiction. And it was talking about how all of these different stressors that happen, introducing children to sex early, having parents that aren't functional themselves or who are addicts themselves, or not participating in your children's life and having them learn from others, because that is those are your strangers. Those are the stranger danger, not so much the weird guy on the corner.
Exactly.
It's the friend who has a friend who introduces your child to something one time, and now you can't figure out what to do, because as the guy was saying, once you are an addict of some sort, it changes the way your mind functions. It changes the way your hormones function, and no one can cure that but a doctor and you.
Yeah.
And
Right.
you have to be the one to do that. But there's so many things that happen after a trauma that are not addressed, as we said earlier. If you could receive therapy as it was happening, because I know that with me, when I started therapy for myself, I really just needed permission to be okay with being angry, or I needed permission to be able to say that I didn't like that or that it hurt me. And you would think, oh, that's normal. It's not. Because if you are raised to deal with it and to shut up and keep moving, because it happens next, it happens next. You know, if I can deal with it, you can deal with it. And that's not true, because you're not dealing with it. The reason why you tell me to shut up is because you have to deal with it.
Exactly. You don't want to deal with it.
So I think that a lot of the times when we hear people say, well, I don't want to go to therapy, or I'm not asking somebody to help me out, really it's fear. It's just because it's fear of not seeing somebody who looks like you, like we said before, fear of being judged, fear of financial ramifications, because not everybody can afford to go to therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of services that are starting to come out now where you can look them up and they can help you via the internet, via cell phone, via FaceTime. You can go into their office. There's some of them that do pro bono work that help,
That's right.
inner city youth. So I really encourage you to find someone that you can talk to so that you can get some of the heaviness off your heart, because it will really change the way you see life.
And if you can't find anyone in person, there are tons of social media platforms. American Mental Health has this forum, and they have a podcast called Open Mic. In the Open is what they call it, in the open, and called they call it in the open because they want people to realize that dealing with your mental well-being is something that should happen, not just in the public, but there's no need to be ashamed of saying, hey, I need some assistance, I need some help. And on their podcast, what they talk about, there's one episode where they talk about a variety of platforms that you can find online that are safe, where you can remain anonymous and just ask a few questions and things of that nature. I wasn't banging on the table.
We so
I wasn't tapping
This
on.
is sibling stuff, y'all.
Oh,
Just bear with.
she's giving me the number. She's saying you can call in.
See how we try to support
organic-
brothers, and they like, wow, she's attacking me. I'm like, she's supporting.
Wow, we went to attack. I wasn't thinking attack,
know. I
but
was just
that K Latte, and we went to
I was just
attack.
sliding the paper down. Eventually, I was just going.
I would say I was being self-conscious because I speak with my hands and I touch a lot of things, and so as
I'm practicing too.
Yeah.
Believe me, I'm
So,
holding my hand.
But
That's why I'm
anyway,
holding
let
my
me do
phone.
this. We want our callers to remember, if you're listening right now and you want to call in, please call in to 1-855-493-6499. Once again, that's 1-855-4WEMIXX. 1-855-4WE-MIX. We're looking forward to callers calling in. Share with us some of your stories. Share with us what you're dealing with and what you're going through, and some of the things, like I said, that you've been able to overcome, and some of the practices that you've been able to use to overcome those. Because we know that as you're on this journey, and while there are many books and there are many formulas that are out there, I believe that each individual's unique journey into mental well-being is a personal one. And you're going to receive knowledge and tips from a lot of different people in this world. But the cool thing I believe about God is that He places the right people, the right people, platforms, and billboards or whatever it may be, where that word that you need in that moment is just what it will take just to kind of help you and turn you around.
Amen.
Well, you want me to stop the music?
We want you to start the music. That was the Fade in the Black.
Fade in the Black.
Hey.
Organic Radio, Super DJ Sean Rebel. We up in here with All Up in Your Business. Definitely call in 1-855-493-6499. A number again is 1-855-493-6499. Come on. Another song by Protege on the beat called Confessions. Oh, I got to shout out my sponsors. My sponsors. We're going to bring that back. Bring that back. Club Expectations Bar and Lounge. Terra Cafe 2. Basic Black Clothing. FSE Wear. Shout out to y'all for this shirt. I got it on today. What's up? Let's throw a shout out to all the producers out there, all the engineers, all the studio technicians. You on your game, get your music, get your hustle up. Let's get it. DJ Sean Rebel at gmail.com. DJ SHAWNREBEL at gmail.com. Song's called Never Gonna Let You Go. Protege on the beat, y'all. Songs right here is called Come Correct. Protege on the beat. 1-855-493-6499. Y'all don't see me on camera, but you hear my voice. Go ahead and dial in. All up in your business up in the building today. DJ K Latte Life. Song right here is called Double R Anthem. We got a caller. Hold on, y'all.
my gracious. That was hilariously funny. Let me get myself together.
All right, caller, you on the air.
What's up? Anger Music Group in the house. What's going on? MIXXSTATION, Rebel, K-Latte Life. What's up? All up in your business.
Hello. How you doing?
Good. Just chilling. Just wanted to come on here to encourage my brother and my sister. Keep going. Keep doing what y'all doing.
We appreciate that, brother. We thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Who on the check-in? Who we got on the check-in? Make yourself known.
What your name is?
Or did he hang up? He must have hung up.
I think he said AMG. He said AMG. He didn't say AMG. He said AMG Music. He did say Anchor Manager.
Shout out to AMG Music, another one of our sponsors for the radio show, Organic Radio Show. Definitely playing some of the hits from Preach and the rest of the team out there. Shout out. We appreciate that love.
There we go. He's off there. Okay. He's off there.
As my man Gilmer says, there it is.
There it is.
Is that copywritten?
Everything copywritten. My whole childhood is now copywritten. All of the sayings, everything I grew up saying. So I can't
see. There it is.
Yeah. So I can no longer say.
Don't give them names.
I can no longer say that.
Callers, if you're trying to call in, is 1-855-493-6499. We still here.
All right, here we go. So we're going to jump back in. I'm going to read a quote, and then from reading this quote, I'll jump back into. And I want to. Oh, my bad, Lovely. Did you have something you want to jump into before you?
No, it just depends. Because I like when you talk from your heart. So are you going to talk from your heart?
Yes, I am going to talk from my heart right at
Go. I like
it. It is. She said she loves it. But I am going to ask you and K-Latte Life to join in once I finish reading this. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this is another quote. This like I say, in the midst of reading several articles this week, this one kind of stood out to me. And like I say, I'll shout out to Tanya McKenzie, who wrote this article. And she wrote it, I want to say, May 22nd of 2018. But this quote that she had in there, she said, "For those of us living in communities riddled with violence, this often makes us into spectators of bloody fights and gun violence. Watching a bullet tear through flesh and suffering, or sometimes death, that follows is not a scene that can easily be washed away from the memory. Listening to your parents scream and fight, suddenly hearing the thud of bodies hitting the walls and floor while someone is being thrown around is not a sound that can easily be erased from the memory. Watching a disagreement between two kids after school turn into a fist fight and end in bloodshed is not a scene that we have not at least heard about. Watching, hearing, and experiencing all of these situations unfold can leave someone with PTSD, and even witnessing something as common as a car accident can cause symptoms of the disorder to resurface." And when I read this article, like when I read that quote, what it made me think about was like the different experiences you kind of have coming up, and you think about the significant moments, because even though she started talking about where we grew up in the hood, just think, like, my kids didn't grow up and don't grow up in the hood, but my kids, and I realized there was one moment when I realized my anger and some of the things that I carried when I was younger into my marriage and rearing of my children this is probably 1998. There was an episode where I was not physically abusive to my wife and my daughter, my oldest daughter, but I was definitely verbally abusive because I was very angry. And anger was the easiest thing for me to show. And there was a moment where I had come to my faith, and I was trying to live this air quotes Christian life. And as I'm trying to live this life, there were things about me that changed, but the one thing that didn't change was my attitude, or my anger rather. And I remember having a moment where I used to get angry over the stupidest things. But the moment I was going to talk about the black pens, I know that's the story. I'll give y'all the black pen story after I give you this story. But there was this one episode where we were sitting in a living room, and I forget whatever it was that happened, and I just explode into this ball of anger, and I'm ranting and raving, and I look at Trisha's eyes, and I look in Deaja's eyes, and I see fear. Now, I wasn't going to touch either one of them, didn't. And like I said, Deaja didn't have a beating since she was probably like 5 years old. So she was older at this time. But when I was responded the way I did and saw the fear in their eyes, I realized I had to change, and like I had anger issues to the point of I mean it was actually disturbing how easy it was for something so stupid to drive me to a point of just blowing up, that I was like, man, I have to fix this. And it was funny because my answer to fixing it actually wasn't actually talking about it at the time. My answer to fixing it was just like, I'm gonna suppress my anger, and then it manifests itself differently. But do you guys hold on, let me check in. Do we have a call on the line, or we're good? Okay. But can you guys think of some childhood experiences that kind of carried over into, you know, where you've seen things growing up, or you've heard the thud on the wall, or you've heard things, because our kids still are impacted by what's going on in our lives, even if they don't grow up in the hood.
So I will say, for me, I am a manifestation. Like, my attitude and how I carry things is a direct manifestation of my childhood and my need for peace in my house. So I grew up in a house where it was there. We always had somebody staying with us. There was always like a family friend, a dog,
Always.
a cat. There was just always something, because my mom is a bleeding heart. So people use that against her. So there was always somebody there. But so the issue wasn't really my mom. It was the extra people who were around that brought their drama into it. And as I got older, the minute I thought that because my husband and I have been together since we were 13 and 14. So, you know, you grow up in increments of like 6 months. So we've met each other many different times in many different phases of our lives. But the minute I thought there was going to be an argument or something was going to start, I shut it down. Like, I'm the first person to be like, no. Well, what you're going to say is no. I will walk out of a room and shut the door on you. I know that makes people mad. I do apologize now, but I still will do it.
Sound familiar?
I'm not the person. I'm not the person who, like, because the minute I feel like the anger is going to start, my anxiety kicks in. My blood pressure goes up, and I get scared. I turn into a 5-year-old child who can't hear that. So, and I know that about myself. So I had to learn how to have good, constructive conversations, but it took a long time. So in my house, my husband and I didn't have an argument until we had a huge falling out about 2 years ago. Like, our kids had never heard us raise our voice. That's destructive to them, because they didn't even know that you could have. Now I have my child, my youngest, you can't raise your voice in the house, because her assumption is that one situation is going to happen to our house again. You know, yeah. So it wasn't so much me, because my yelling and outbursts, like you said, the blackout moments, mines were like with my husband in a car. He'll be like, Lee, remember that time you cursed me out while we were sitting in front of the graveyard? I'm thinking to myself, no, but that sounds kind of good, because probably where I wanted to put you. But, you know, like, however, my thought was, why would you park in front of a graveyard to have an argument with me? Like, I don't think that was a good look on your part. But that was my thing. So when anger came at me, it automatically sent me into fight or flight. And I was flight all day, because I wasn't going to scream with you.
So a couple of weeks ago, we kind of touched on that. And so I'm sitting in the room with 3 women, and it's me and Super DJ Rebel.
What up? Hello.
But so I want to ask this, because see, and it's funny, what we touched on a couple of weeks ago, we touched on how women processing men's emotions. And processing them in a healthy way is what I want to touch on and talk about. And not to make it, we're not going to go into all relationships, but the reason I want to touch on
every talk show.
No, because it's super important, because see, I would say being a man, that's something that I struggled with, and I think that was a part of like the explosive, my anger. I allowed my anger to explode when I felt like I was trying to express my emotions and they weren't received, not realizing that my babe probably didn't know how to receive them, or whatever it was she was dealing with, so that she could be open to receive that. And this is where counseling, this is where talking to different individuals, this is where even reading a book comes into play. And right now, because there's so many different forms out there that you can kind of check into and get some insight and advice, most of us, instead of kind of learning to get the help that we need so that we can become mentally healthy, we try to do this with as little experience as possible. And we learn, unfortunately, from our mistakes all too often. And the people who are impacted by it are our children and the people who are close to our worlds, because they see you either, they see you either have that cataclysmic moment where it's like nothing, and then it's like, what the hell? Like, it's like, all of this chaos, or it's just they're living in this almost pretend world where it's like, so we don't fuss, we don't go through things, and we don't do these things, and it's like, nah. I once had a counselor tell me, he said, it's good for your kids to see you, and this was my mentor at the time. He said, it's good for your kids to see you work through difficult situations. He said, because you cannot live in a world where tragedy and chaos does not happen. And when you teach them that tragedy and chaos does not happen, once it enters into their world, if you have not been preparing them for that, then what's going to eventually happen is once that moment hits them, he said, they're going to crumble. And we live in a world now where, and on your job, in schools, in colleges, you name it, but we're teaching people how to run, hide, and fight, doing active shooter training. We're doing all of these things, but what we don't teach people is the basic, everyday, common response to, how do you handle mommy and daddy getting into this argument? Right. How do you handle your sibling actually growing up and they're either addicted to something, or they're struggling with just a normal mental health issue where they may have autism and things of that, like, and you're a child and your sibling is responding in a way where you don't understand it. So instead of like trying to gain a better understanding, you attack, you mock, you joke, you critique, and you think it's funny, but you're actually doing more damage to your loved one.
And it's showing your fear.
Yeah.
So, K-Latte, how do you deal with the stressors of trying to hear and communicate with your spouse, and also how your childhood traumas may affect how you hear the words coming out of his mouth?
That's
got
funny.
A little bit of time. I don't want you to...
When y'all asked me, I was thinking about always from a parenting
standpoint.
Yeah, but since you said spouse, we were just talking about this last night. It's so funny. We were talking to two different couples, and I was just like, oh, I'm so grateful for our dialogue. We work on the communication all the time because, as he says, we all have triggers. So things that happen that don't have nothing to do with me, nothing to do with him, but other stuff that when we come together as one, we all bring our baggage. So we just try to talk about it. Sometimes, I'm a Scorpio, so I'm also a very empathetic person. So like you could say something in bulk or whatever, and I'll take it. But then something will just click, and I'm going to give you all that back. So I try to definitely, as I say, check myself first. Take a moment and be like, you talking to me? Or like, what did I do? Did I miss something? So sometimes I just step back like, all right, he's stressed out. He worrying about, And sometimes I'm tired. Like, he always like, you got anxiety. I don't like being late. I don't like rushing. Like, it drives me crazy. So you get whole nother latte, and he just like, hey, when you act like that. And I'm like, I'm responding to
the situation.
You put nothing, And so it's like, we be laughing later, but it's like, why would you mad? I'm like, I wasn't mad. I told you I was hungry. I wasn't mad. So when we know, like, all right, when we hungry now, let's get our food out the way. What else? We tired. We rush. Let's go knock this out. And sometimes we do a gig. We high five. We kiss, and we like everything is good. But then it's like, well, what happened earlier? You was tripping, and I'm like, I was tripping. So now just like we just try to choose the word so it doesn't sound like an attack, and that we actually hear the other person out. Not that we have to agree, because we don't always agree, but we can agree to disagree and be like, we good. We going to go forward. So if this happened, can you just tell me what you meant? Because he say, I don't know if he wants to, so he'll say that I'm saying something, but he don't know that he did exactly what I said. Y'all, man, it's like, I'm going to the store, get this bread, and we leaving. And I'm like, I want to go to this, I'm trying to go see snacks. I didn't have to say it. And he's like, no, you need to tell me what you're doing, because I'm thinking we leaving. And I'm like, I got to look. Like, that's me. I tear a store down. And he's like, I'm ready to go. You said go to Walmart. I'm like, no, I meant Walmart parking lot is a whole bunch of
That was
stores.
actually yesterday.
So I'm telling him we can get something to eat. I can get some hair, because, the whole natural hair thing, that's a whole nother episode.
That's
I was looking for something in the Korean shop. That's all I'm going to say, because I'm like, we got to go do this crab feast. We hungry. Boom. All the stores right here. He pulls up the Walmart. So I'm like, what we at Walmart for? So he mad. Like, I found a parking spot. We at Walmart. That's what you said. I'm like, I was using it as a landmark. So sometimes he's like the same thing I say. I guess I'm giving you too much credit because I'm thinking you understand what I'm saying. You know me,
You think he can read your mind?
And I'd be like, you know me, like you know where I'm going with
They
it.
don't read our
and
minds.
instead, he give it all back. He's so analytical. He's
Men
like,
have
well, this is
ESPN.
exactly
We
what
don't
you
have
said.
ESP, so
And
we
I'm
don't
like,
want you giving
oh
us those
my
things.
God.
Really?
I need you.
Really,
to-
we're supposed to read the mind.
And you know, I'm probably really more. Nothing was wrong. I told him I was hungry, but probably freaking out. Like my head gonna look like a puppy by the time we get to the place. So can we please get in the shop? I got like 5 minutes to pick something, and he just like, oh, you figure that out. We gotta go. So I'm like, instead of, I want to break down the crowd because I'm like, I'm just standing in the car then because I'm gonna look crazy. And it's like we gotta go, and we hungry. So it's just like now we just gotta be like
hangry, 50%
"Whew."
attitude.
It's a whole lot of,
Yeah.
but I'm not mad. I'm not mad at him. I'm
understand
so
the murder.
frustrated with this situation.
Yeah,
I'm like, I
situation,
don't even know what to do with all this. You see me, you know, I'm like, you see me. I'm trying, like, I did all that and it didn't come out like that. So I need to go get some Korean, like, you know. But, you know, it worked out and we got something to eat and we was there early. Everything, the show was nice and I still love you today.
Exactly.
See how he
They hit
stay
that.
back, he smile, he make me wait.
No,
This
he
the
gave
stuff
you the
I be
eyebrows.
talking
That's adult talk that we don't want to be a part of.
okay. Well,
Okay.
I said it online.
But you know,
See,
but you
gotta
know what's
keep
funny?
my brows.
So exactly. So you guys say you love
You
it
know
back.
I love you too.
There you
right?
go. I was like, so you better say that back, bro.
he know me. I just, I
you
gotta
gotta
hear the word.
You gotta hear that, bro.
I
was
know,
her
but I wanna hear it.
Her tone got real deep. Like I said it online.
Because we talking about mental.
like I said it
Yeah,
online.
So for me, it's that's
need to
like
hear
traumatic. Like I just put myself out there,
You have
and
to
y'all should be able to relate because I know it's harder for men to say I put myself out here. I like her. Oh, she ain't say nothing. She ain't call me, or you know,
Actually-
before we used to write a note. And you'd
Actually,
be like
it's
check yes,
frustrating.
no, or maybe.
It's frustrating because we put ourselves all the way out there.
a
First
lot of
date,
times. Yeah.
all the time. Then it's like shut down. So we get the opposite of what you say.
And I was great to say that's actually Super DJ Sean
Super
Rebel.
DJ Sean Rebel.
All
But,
right, y'all
but one of the
outnumbered.
things,
Y'all
but,
outnumbered.
but it's no, it's not even about the outnumber part. But that kind of he set it up for the question I was going to ask because I think in the midst of dealing with this, and like I said, we're not going to devote because that's a later show. We do want to go there. We said we want to
Okay.
kind of have have some people sitting on that table.
Yes.
So
Wifey.
I'll jump off. Yeah, I don't want to stay on that topic too long. Exactly, because that is the time to say supersonic. But no, the question that we could pose it later, where we discuss that the languages, and I know they said that the different love languages and stuff, and so I don't want to go all into the book, but because I think
I
that
read it. It was great.
I'm not saying the book is not great, but I think that even some of the experiences when we're coming from a mental health perspective, and you're coming from some of we're talking about PTSD and growing up in the neighborhoods in which we grew up in, and even in some of the homes we've grown up in, a lot of males do not see strong support. And I'm not talking about. I hate the wrong perception that we give off as men, and I see these things. And stuff. I've been an individual who excelled in sports. I've been an individual who excelled in academics. I've excelled in my professional life, and all of those things, if you wrap all of that together, none of those things still make me who I am. All of those are just titles. And when it comes to the heart of who I am, one of the things I had on my list as a significant point in my life after my first heartbreak was looking for unconditional love. And I was looking for unconditional love. And for all of my church-going people and church-going folk, we'll say that only comes from God. And I'll tell people, while I know that to be true, it's still embodied in the different individuals he brings into your life. And it's scripture to back that up all day long.
Can you say that again for the people in the back who didn't hear it?
But when those individuals who talk about unconditional love only coming from God, I believe, and I have scripture to back it up, and you go to 1 John where it talks about, it says, how can a person love God without first loving their brother or sister who they see? You say, if you don't love the brother or sister who you see, you can't love God. So stop telling me unconditional love is just from our spiritual father, God, who is kind of reaching down and just like kind of sprinkling it on you. It's lived out through you and your life. And so once again, I digress.
But I liked it. But I was going to say sprinkle me, man. But I figured that was a copyright.
But from a male perspective, from a male perspective, like I don't want even on this show, I'm going to walk away from a lot of those stereotypes. Yes, I'm a man, but me being angry is no different than when I see women get angry.
Right.
Me wanting to connect and relate was something I wanted when I was a teenager. Me having a desire to, like I say, talk my babe into having a child as a teenager was because I wanted to feel love from a family.
Right.
and I wanted connection, and that didn't prevent me from all of the different things that I did and accomplished, quote unquote, as a man. All of the titles never made me feel complete.
Right.
What makes me feel complete is the family unit that I'm a part of, and not that the family was perfect, but that the family was always what I wanted, because that's what made me feel whole. And so when you're kind of going through it from a mental perspective, we don't have guys to bring that into our lives. What we have is we have a lot of guys who bring into our lives like conquest. If I've conquered a woman or women, if I've conquered my professional career, if I've conquered my financial goals, if I've conquered some sports or athletic thing, or you can have all of those things and still commit suicide. You can have all of those things and be
An addict.
And be an addict, or you can have all of those things. I mean, and we talk about, and I'm not going to name the names of their stars. There was a star or a famous billionaire yesterday who committed suicide in prison. You have a star who lives in Chicago. Yes, I'm throwing out there. Who they have all of this money and all of this fame, but both of these stars wanted young girls and wanted to sleep with young girls, and they had an addiction and they had something distorted in their view.
Right.
And so even with money and power, it doesn't mean you're mentally well. It doesn't mean that you're mentally connected. So,
but then think about the flip side to that is that so you're a man who is trying to search for unconditional love. You're being told, shut it down. Your emotions are being, told to shut down.
Being told to shut down. Yes.
Flip side, I'm a female who, emotions are all over the place. But when you are looking for unconditional love as a woman, you create the picture in your head that you want it to look like. So then you're more susceptible. The list, yes. So then
just watch the movie on the list.
So then you start looking for people who fit into the category of what you think it is. And you don't even have to fill the list up, because when you're so desperate for touch, you start accepting people into your life who just fit like, oh, he has brown eyes. I like guys with brown eyes. He shall come in.
Right.
So then you get the person who uses you, because not that women don't use people, because Lord, that's a whole different category of,
the world's oldest profession is called that for a reason.
I'm just saying, men sell themselves too. Amen. So, but you have situations where women or young girls fall for people that look like the picture in their head. Mm-hmm. Because if you grew up without a dad, you start to find men who do manly things in your head. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, he has a job, but you don't know what job he has. Or he has a car, but you don't know where he got the car from. Mm-hmm. And then you later find out that maybe he was a drug dealer, or maybe he is married, or maybe he's an abusive person. Mm-hmm. But you stay because he still fits into the category of what you think you deserve. Yeah. Because you don't have a platform for really who you are as your greater self. And then by the time you figure that out, you've had so much trauma happen that non-combat PTSD kicks in. Mm-hmm. So now you don't trust people when they talk to you. Mm-hmm. You're always telling your kids how shitty their dad is, or you're always having an antagonistic type personality to the situation. Yeah. So like you can't accept a guy who comes in and be like something, you're aggressive with your love. Mm-hmm. I'm aggressively fighting your love, and we live in a house together. Mm-hmm. What does that look like?
Speak on that.
Most of our relationships.
That's what I'm saying. So then you turn 40 and like all of a sudden when you're 40, your hormones have calmed down. Your estrogen level is starting to drop. Your, testosterone has dropped down. You're no longer fighting to have sex all the time. So now you're just sitting in a room together like, I kind of still like you. I don't know. And I'm sorry that I fucked up your life. But if we could make this work, this second half will be amazing. And you're like, what? And you need somebody to sit, and that's when you need somebody to be like, ding, okay, on this side of the ring, so that way you can have honest conversations with each other. Will you let them know, when you did this hurt me? But once we start working through them,
absolutely,
it becomes such a beautiful place if you can make it to that place.
Right.
But not everybody deserves that place.
Right.
Yeah, but when you say not everybody deserves it, I would dare to say that you may not be able to arrive at that place with that person that you probably entered into that situation.
And that's
with.
what I
was going to say. Yeah, I was going to say. So
You
it doesn't.
don't deserve it with me.
Yeah, I was going to say because there are times when an individual will be going through what they're going through, and you want to see all people come to a state of mental well-being, but that doesn't always mean it's going to end up with the same two people who started the journey together. I mean, that's just life. Okay. So Super DJ, I said it wrong.
What up? Super DJ Sean Rebel.
No, man, that's too fast.
You gotta say it lower.
Super DJ Sean
Rebel.
There
What's
it
up,
is. So we want to take a little break right now, and as we're going into this little break right now, we're going to come back out and we're going to go into one of our last the last piece of, we're going to touch on some more common symptoms of non-combat PTSD. There's about 4 or 5 other things I want to talk to, and then we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do to kind of actually combat this and some steps that you can take as you're kind of approaching this, because as you know, a subject like this is tough to cover in 1 hour. There's many more conversations that can and should be had on this, and as we continue our podcast, are we're over the hour already?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
We swam past the hour.
There it is. So nonetheless, we're going to take a little break right now, and then we're going to come back and touch on some final topics, some final subjects, and give you people some pointers and things that you could take, and we'll drop our social media platforms that you can reach out to us on, and even if it's just reaching out to us so that we can connect you with someone else. So thank you for joining All Up in Your Business podcast, and we'll be right back in a few seconds.
Song right here. It's called I'm the Man, produced by yours truly, Super DJ Sean Rebel. Let's get it.
Hey, what's up, Diva? Shout out to DJ Sean Rebel, MIXXSTATION.com, Juan99, 99 Characters Entertainment, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up.
Yeah, what's good? It's your man Trump, aka C Love, representing Uptown Harrisburg, PA. Shout out to DJ Sean Rebel, MIXXSTATION.com. 99 characters entertainment. We out here, baby. Let's get it.
What's up, man? It's your boy Banger from the Hilltop, Harrisburg, man. Shout out to MIXXSTATION.com with Super DJ Sean Rebel, man. Fucks with your boy.
This is 199, 99 characters entertainment. Harrisburg representer. You know we doing our thing out there. Gotta give a big shout out to my man DJ Sean Rebel. Keep it playing, man. Keep them tunes moving, you.
Yo, that's 16, Pothole City, USA. Repping for my man DJ Sean Rebel. You know, we go way back like Cadillacs with the shark fins, you know what I mean? Keep it banging, man, on the Mix Station. That's what's up. Peace.
Goody, it's your boy Main Rex. Support you support me. Your boy or whatever, you know what I mean? Touchdown Entertainment, whatever. You know what I mean? Out of Pennsylvania. Stand the fuck. Signing off. For all the latest from the hottest local records, tune into DJ Sean Rebel at MIXXSTATION.com. This is Brooklyn Dodge and Renegade Rebel Enterprises, and I approve this message.
And we're back.
Hello.
Hello. What was that on Mrs. Doubtfire? Said hello.
Yes.
Y'all got everybody catchphrases today.
That's what's good.
We are here to say that
There it
we do
is.
not own the rights to any of these words we've said today.
We're just
I'm not
using
even going to say
We're
that.
just using
We're
them.
just going to use them. You know what? All right. I said it. All right.
Exclamation. All right.
I said it.
Exclamation. We're trying to help you out. We're trying
Say
to
it.
help you.
Say it with your chest.
Yeah, say it with your chest. Say it like you mean it. Bring it from the diaphragm.
What's up? We back in the house with all the up in your business.
Yes.
They got some final segments they want to get into, so let's go.
Yes, so we just wanted to give you a little bit of background from the studies that we've researched regarding PTSD, and I'll just read a couple things. It said a recent study that ran in the American Journal of Orthopsychiatry found that you don't even need a direct experience of violent crime to be hurt by it. So it's a doctor named Carrie Reisler. They have evidence that said evidence of higher rates of PTSD in urban population than in war veterans. So you think about that. And then I read a article that said more kids were killed in between 2003 and 2011 than Americans were lost in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and the Iraq War. That is astronomical. And a lot of that is because they don't have the means to express themselves.
Yep.
There's so much there's so many avenues of communication now. Your phone, the internet, you know,
Everything.
you can FaceTime,
Everything,
Instagram.
everything.
But think about do you really have connections with people? You can have 1 million followers, but two real friends.
Absolutely.
You know, and to know that the stress cursors that come from watching your friends die repeatedly, but living in the same neighborhood, or having someone called it a hood disease, which was a lie.
Yes,
really, because a hood disease is a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, I was just say
You
that's
know,
another
kids cover your
conversation.
ears.
Yeah, I was just say that.
But if you think about it, if you are living in an area where you watch your friends die, but you continue to live in that area, every day you walk out of your house, it is a trigger every day. Because if your best friend died on that corner, or your brother died on that corner, and you have to pass that corner every day, that is a new story every day. Until one day you're numb. And then once you're numb and you lose that feeling, your regard for any other life starts to diminish.
Goes away.
Even your own.
When you grow up, we grew up. I remember first meeting, and Trisha can attest to this. In the neighborhood I grew up in, we would, she would come around. We would go to cookouts, things of that nature. And when bullets would be fired, like I wouldn't get low. I would make sure she go in the house. But what would I do? What I used to do when bullets used to be fired? You look around and be like, all right, who is that right now? Like I wasn't in the place of like I'm going to duck, I'm going to go for cover. Like it had become so commonplace in the neighborhood I grew up in, where when the bullets were fired, I mean, it wasn't even stalling. It wasn't like you're going to get hit by a stray. It was just what life was. And so you do become immune to those things because it just happens over and over. You're almost living in like a suspended or different reality. Like this is normal, even though it's very abnormal and it should not be a part of your childhood. It is something that's very, very normal for a lot of kids who live in those circumstances and surroundings.
Okay, and you had some more information you wanted to show on the positive side, things we can do.
So what I wanted to do is and I'll transition from that because it's funny because even though I grew up in that environment and grew up in that neighborhood, I've been fortunate enough to like I stated earlier, I've been very successful and I've been thankful. I believe my life was riddled. I wrote down something. I said my life was riddled with drama. Some of it endured and others self-inflicted. My life is a testament to God's grace. I have no other way to explain it. I have lived a far from perfect life, and I could have been easily affected by many of the things that have plagued many of the people I grew up with. So even with me, making it to where I am, I'm thankful to not the grace that was shown to me, but I also realized there was a sense of personal responsibility that I had to have in that. And there were some steps that I had to take. There was a decision early on to not only, be employed, but there was a decision to, hey, I'm going to lock in and I want to take care of my daughter. I don't just want to take care of my daughter. I want to raise my child. I want to be involved. I wanted her to have an education, and I wanted to make sure we were financially set. I mean, I was financially taking care of my kids. So there were some decisions that I made in this journey. And while I didn't realize these were mental health or mental well-being steps that I was taking at the time.
The other day, we were just trying to live.
Yeah, you're just trying to live. You're just trying to figure it out as you go along. The purpose and one of the purposes of our podcast is that even while you're trying to figure it out, we're going to try to point you in the direction and give you some pointers and tips that can help you along the way so that you just don't have to figure it out, but you can actually look up some resources and go to some places. So in an article written by a young lady named E.B. Johnson, she states 10 things that you can start doing to kind of, start your journey to mental well-being. Okay. And I wanted to touch on those 10 things. So I'm moving down to the 10 things. Had to get a name. So here we go. It says the 10 best ways to heal from childhood trauma. The first one says distance yourself from toxic people. Now, when you're growing up in the hood, this is difficult, or can be difficult, but this is what I'll say, and I'll use myself as an example. I told you that moment that I had when I started using the term regular and, getting past people talking about the hand-me-downs that I was wearing. That was a personal decision. Did it hurt what some of those people were saying? Yes. Did I actually have aggressive thoughts towards some of those people at times and you wanted to kind of make things happen? Absolutely. Yeah, there you go. I absolutely did. But you know what I decided? I wanted to be in control of my life. And what I did was I stopped letting them dictate who I was and what I was going to be doing. So distance yourself from toxic people, and it is your choice, and you can make that choice. And one of the blessings and the best things that come into my life at that time, and I remember it was I met my then girlfriend, but now wife. I met her at the time, and so I made my family, even at that early age, the center of my world, so that I could start moving away from the toxic people who came into my life. Number 2. Learn self-regulation and stress reduction techniques. find an outlet. And I know it's somewhat hard depending on what your situation may be, but you got to find an outlet. We talked about social media being a platform, but whether it's playing some type of sport, finding some type of club, meditation. And I know when you're growing up where we grow up, some of those things don't seem that well, but there are so many programs in the inner city now where they have they do self-gardening and things of that nature. They're using different resources to tell kids there are different outlets. And even if you're the toughest of tough people in the world, there are programs out there that can help you to kind of move past or get to a place where you can kind of reduce stress by getting around positive people. And one of the things that we used to say we used to call positive people corny when I was growing up.
Right.
What I've learned
Still calls me corny. I just want to say that.
That's because of
'Cause I
many
am.
other things. Yeah, I was just say that's not for any mental well-being situations.
He called me mental the other day.
but I would dare to recommend to these individuals, look for places where when I say positive, I'm not talking about you shedding who you are, shedding your ethnicity, your identity, or your culture. I watched two young boys that play the drums that were on Ellen. I forget the young kid's name, but
one child.
Yeah, there you go. And I saw them on Fox 45. And these young men, they were just talking about how they had always expected to blow up, but they use their experiences. They use these drums as a form of expression, and that's healthy for them. So whatever it is that you're talented or have a skill in, you can use that as a stress-reducing technique to kind of help make yourself better.
And just to add in, affirmations. It's one of the best techniques you can use for yourself. You look yourself in the mirror and you give yourself 5 positive things that you feel about yourself. Do you know how hard that is? But 5 things that you tell yourself that you love yourself and that you're worthy and that you're here for a reason, that you have a purpose. And if you tell yourself that in the morning, every day, you start your positive thinking before somebody else hits you.
And find the song, find the movie, find the book, find something that does, just because
Absolutely.
I remember, and babe, you'll remember this. This is funny because when I was being called conceited and vain, instead of like letting that be an insult to me, I embraced it. I remember the song that came out that says, "I'm too sexy for my shirt." So sexy for
my shirt, so sexy it hurts.
I would play that, and when people would say, "Oh, you look nice today," I said that was my intention when I came outside.
Okay.
But you know what?
I don't even know.
But you know what? Because I took what was meant to kind of hurt me and cut me,
and use that.
I used that to strengthen myself. And it was one of those things where it's like, I'm not going to allow you to dictate.
But did you wear the shirt?
Did I wear the shirt?
The cut shirt.
No, I did not wear. No.
I'm just asking a question because if you took it all the way there, we need pictures, honey. Pictures.
Moving on. Moving on. Exactly, right?
2020.
Number 3, seek out support. Seek out support. Sometimes it isn't just possible to heal from trauma of your past alone. It's common for trauma survivors to become isolated, but this isolation is actually counterproductive to your healing. If you really want to find your way back to harmony, start by seeking support and get the strength you need to put the pieces back together. This entire walk and this journey that we've chosen to take, and I'm thankful to be taking this journey because I'm not only taking it with my sister, but with my wife, my kids, with K Latte, with DJ Super Rebel. This is for me a family affair. And
That's
going
right.
through this process is one where we're going to be encouraging and supporting each other, but we want to be there to encourage and support other individuals. So at the end of these 10 things, I have 6 more to read, but my sister will be letting you know exactly how you can reach out to us. And then if you reach out to us on those platforms, we'll try to point you in a direction, because when you look up things on social media, there's so many ways that you can actually, find out who you can connect with in Baltimore. But I will add this. I believe there is a unique flair. I believe there is a unique flair to what it is that we're doing and what we're bringing to the table. And I believe that God has provided us with a certain level of wisdom and experience that can help people. So if you want to reach out to us on our social media platforms, please feel free to do so. Y'all gonna stop laughing at those people. Stop it.
You can't hear the mic. Don't worry
Facebook
about it.
Live,
It is loud.
it's not me. I'm not.
She said,
There are people who are feeling the love.
Don't worry about it. You good. So number 4, let me work this.
Go ahead.
Now, TC, you got this on lock. Number 4 way of reducing stress is get more sleep.
Yeah.
Show me how.
There's
Show me
not-
the ways
No,
over
my
one.
brain don't stop.
there's not much. It says there's not much that a good night or two of decent sleep won't cure.
Yeah, you ain't missing nothing. You ain't missing nothing. Go to sleep.
But you know what's funny about that? What some of the reasons and the other article I read, it depends on turning your brain off or tuning your brain out is going to take. You talk about meditation. It's actually, to me, tuning those, not just tuning the thoughts out, processing the thoughts, speaking to those thoughts, because when my mind is racing and running, usually my mind is racing when I haven't had a closed conversation. Even if I set the next conversation up for the day, I have to let someone know, you know what, this is what's going on inside of me. And because this is going on inside of me, we don't have to talk about it tonight, but we really need to set up a time to talk. Yeah. And so that if you're doing that, that allows you to move into a place of peace, because when you're stressing, when you're feeling pressure, when you're anxious or feeling some type of panic coming on, it's tough to kind of close your eyes, because the brain kicks in and it just starts working, and you're going reviewing everything that you want to say.
Gotta work it out. Gotta work it out.
And so it's there. So
I'm tired, but I gotta work it out.
So it's 5:30 in the morning. Then
number 5 is tighten up your diet. Rebel, you had mentioned this a few weeks ago when we were talking about how a good diet, and I'm one who believes that I like eating food, but understanding how food and how those things impact your neurobiological state is something that's real important. And so we're not going to delve into that one, because that's a large word. That's something that's something that you can unpack there. So we're not going to do that. Number 6, allow yourself to get close to people. That's a trust factor that's really, really tough. Ooh. Yeah, exactly, right. But when you do it, I said it in my poem. Like I said, the Would You Listen poem that I read a couple of weeks ago was talking about, if I'm willing to open up and talk to you, would you listen? And not what you dictate to me, not what you try to tell me to, not what you instruct me to be like you, but if you're willing to listen, then it's easier for me to open myself up to.
Both sides have to build that trust, and
exactly.
That's something that you really have to work on. Yeah.
So number 7, realize you're safe now. Once you distance yourself from traumatic events, or once you've had the opportunity to kind of say, I'm separating myself from toxic people, and you've made a decision. When I made a decision to move from East Baltimore, and we moved to West Baltimore, and then we moved to the area where we're living now, it became a lot easier for me to actually start dealing with some of the baggage or some of the emotions and anger that I had inside of me, because as I was entering into new worlds, I used to always tell people I grew up in a 9-block radius where I felt the most safe in this toxic place, because even though there were guns, bullets flying, and even though there was a lot of, there was carnage and drugs and everything else around me, I felt safe there because I knew it exactly. And so once I was able to get away from it, I was able to actually start looking and realizing, oh man, this was, how that was not just damaging to me, but it was actually hindering my growth.
And I was completely opposite. The minute I got out, I did whatever I could to get out of the 10 blocks, 20 blocks wasn't enough, 30 blocks wasn't enough, because I had no commitment to a neighborhood. I moved so much. We moved 18 times by the time I was 17. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And my mom was always trying to move away from what was happening. So she would, like, the minute something bad happens, we flew. We was out. We were moving out. But what happens is you don't make connections with anybody. Yeah. So then you don't trust anybody. So then you try to figure out how to get further out and further out and further out. So then you don't build a tribe.
So you know what? One thing, because even though this is talking about a way to kind of deal with childhood trauma, if you're not safe in a safe environment, a safe space right now, you may have to have a different approach. And a part of that approach is starting to talk with someone about different options you may have to have while you're actually still involved in the trauma, because not everybody's going to be in a safe space as they're dealing with trauma. Yeah. So that's number 7. Number 8 was find a trauma specialist. And this is something that we were saying. The one thing we say on this podcast is that we're not mental behavior therapists, we're not psychologists or psychiatrists.
We're just regular people trying to talk to you like we would talk to our friends and family.
But we are going to be here to facilitate the conversation, because we believe in peer-to-peer mediation. We believe in peer-to-peer support. And oftentimes what you may not be able to find in a counselor or a therapist is, our willingness to talk about those things that impact our lives. We're regular human beings who deal with real life topics in a way where as though, hey, this is how I'm working through, and these are some of the things that I have worked through to get to where I am. And you know what? Because we're on this journey, we've already committed to, this is not just a for now thing. This is something that we're going to continue to work on as we journey through the rest of our lives. So number 9 is find an experienced medical specialist, which ties into that number 8. And the last one, number 10, get honest about how you're surviving. Stop and take an honest look at your life as it stands right now in this moment. Allow yourself to recognize all the ways you have attempted to keep yourself safe and be brutally honest in recognizing all the coping mechanisms you've built up over the years. And I'll say this, and then I want you to talk, and I want to hear something from you, K Latte. I used writing, I used rapping, I used to use basketball. I used so many different things as coping mechanisms to sometimes, because I didn't always feel, not that I couldn't talk, but sometimes I didn't feel like I was being heard. Sometimes I would be afraid to share certain things about myself. But the one place where I could find peace was whenever I would sit down and write. I love to write poetry. And when I would write poetry or write out my thoughts, in all of the books that I have, I would be reading a book about someone else, but I'm writing my thoughts. And so I would be actually learning to heal myself by writing what my comments was, because that, even though I wasn't sitting in front of a professional, that professional's book became my therapist. And so I would write my notes, and then I would reflect on those notes then. So those is, giving yourself honest feedback about how you're surviving is real essential. So K Latte, what are some of the things you've learned to do to kind of like not only survive, but have you ever been honest with yourself? Or can you give the listeners something honest about yourself, about how you've actually come to be right here sitting in this studio doing what it is you're doing, because you've survived many things in your life as well. So can you give us something that you've done to kind of bring you here right now to this day?
I've never been afraid to talk about stuff. I was raised in a household of don't tell what goes on, but as I got older, I felt like me talking about stuff, whether I would laugh about a serious situation, but that's how I dealt with stuff. I was always the person to help other people feel like they could talk to me. So that kind of like that self-therapy when I'm talking to other people, and you think that you just had the worst situation, and then strangers will be talking to me now, and I'll be like, oh, well, shoot. Okay, yeah.
Let me breathe.
So I'm okay. You gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And so now I just always use that and just always help other people, and that was like my outlet. Like I felt good at the end of the day that I did something for somebody else. When I became a parent, I definitely was an advocate for moms. Like I would give out my food. I had food, so I would give out food. I would give out WIC, and people be like, "Oh, you stupid girl, why you giving?" And I'm like, "Cause somebody else need it. I don't need all this. I'm gonna help somebody, whatever that situation was. I didn't ask you questions. I didn't make you feel bad. I just knew that obviously you need it, and so that's how I always been. But I guess I probably got that from my grandmother. I'm just very giving like that, and sometimes my husband get mad, be like, "You're too nice." I've got the "you too nice," but that's me. I feel good in my heart at the end of the day that if you were playing and you wanted to call yourself using me or whatever, you got what you got. But so I'm like, that's okay, And now I tell people, well, be careful what you do, because you burn the bridge, you can't come back over that bridge that you burn. Yeah. So and
that's getting away from them toxic people.
So like I was like you, I used to write songs and stuff, still got it, and I dance all the time. So music is definitely this brings us all full circle. Music is definitely I would say the same thing, I'm sure, for Rebel, our outlet. That music, I could take you there and you could hear a song and it just heals everything.
Oh,
and
sis,
I'm okay.
I lined up, but then I had to be reminded of copyright infringement when I was thinking about when I was thinking about stuff. I was remember because we're Wu Head. They have a Wu-Tang laundry room. That's what's up. I'm loving.
Look,
this.
she done fell in love. What?
I got Biggie in the kitchen.
So, but the songs I was thinking about when you were saying that, like for this episode, I was thinking, can it be that it was
so
all so simple then?
Oh,
and I was listening to that Jizza, Cold World, and then listening to I Got Your Back, and I was that Talib Kweli, Get By, and I was just listening to these songs this morning because all of these songs talk about growing up in these environments that we were going through. Exactly. So it was so much, and I was just like, ooh. So go ahead, sis. I'm sorry.
No.
Super Sonic.
No, I'm
it's okay. It's okay.
All that I got is you.
So
you know what I mean, right?
Runaway love.
Yeah, it again, right? Go ahead, go. So we gonna get going. Sis, come on,
rap. Y'all know y'all can't bring me to the music.
Wrap this episode up for us, sis. Come on, please.
So, to answer your question, my biggest reprieve was writing. And again, I wrote poetry. It's so funny. I listened to my brother talk, and you have those Me Too moments but in a positive way. You know, we were both into music. We were both into arts. We were both into writing. We were both into expression of any kind that was positive for us. Even if it came out aggressive, it was still a positive thing.
Yeah.
You know, and my big thing was, I love my uncle, and I talk about him all the time, but I was raised by my uncle, who happened to be a gay man I had to think about that, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Wow.
So he didn't
That's a
even
tough life.
see you could love somebody out openly.
yeah.
He didn't know that you
That's
were
a
going to
tough
get
life.
married. He didn't get to live that life.
yeah.
Right.
So within me, he built me. He raised me to be the freedom that he wanted.
Amen.
So
How
I
about
was
that?
allowed. I knew I was a part of musicals. I got to do just really mind-freeing things because that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, if it was dramatic, if Diane Curl was in it, I was in it, and I didn't even know that like them shoulder pads made your ears and your shoulders tucked, but that was my life. So I think for me, the biggest thing is self-expression and being able to be who you are authentically at that time, because you will change throughout your life. And that's what you need to understand. We're talking to you from 43 and 46-year-olds, but the truth is that
look at
but I'm sorry, that's just the two people on this side. But
we're not throwing out anybody else's age
No,
unless
not at
they
all.
choose to.
But
The bus is
truth
coming. The bus is coming.
But the truth is that the person that I was at 20, 21, 27, 30, so very different. I was not as mature. I didn't know that it was okay to be yourself. It took
Right.
a long time for me to figure that out. I was probably maybe about 31, 32 before I realized, and I've always been very honest, but now I'm very honest with an intention.
Right.
I mean what I say. There is not, I don't have very flighty conversations with people. And though I love to laugh and joke, I want to make sure that when I speak to you and we're talking about something personal, that I'm impacting you and I'm not just putting my point of view on it, that I'm trying to be
Right.
very open. So that's really where I stand in that. So we want to thank everyone for listening to us and coming into our world, because this really is a journey about us, our family and friends, and you guys coming in so that you can affect your family and friends and figure out ways to be healthy and to also give us information and to talk to us and give advice on ways that we can incorporate some of your ideas into our lives, because we don't know everything. We're not professionals,
Right.
and even the professionals have therapists. Remember that. So if you would like to reach us, we have a few
I
avenues.
like messing with professionals. Go ahead.
I
Go
can't
to
with him.
Go to
Poor
avenues.
place.
I do like messing with professionals.
You can reach us on Instagram at All Up in Your Biz Podcast, Bizness Podcast. That's ALLUPNURBIZNESS Podcast. You can also reach Light at LITE.NUBIZ, or you can reach me at LOVELIBROWN. We love you guys so much, and we appreciate you coming and spending time with us. You have a great day. Peace out.
Thank you.
There we go. Good stuff.